Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Do I Have Time for This? The series that looks at old and new video games, both indie and AAA, to help you figure out whether or not you have the time to actually play it, finish it, 100% complete it, or just leave it in your backlog to forever gather dust. We're all busy in life, jobs, kids, classes, exercising, you name it. So let's take a little time right now to look at the Greyhill Incident and figure out, do I have time for this? Greyhill Incident is described as a story-driven survival horror game developed and published by Refugium Games. The game centers around the titular rural town of Greyhill, in which rumors are abound of grey men walking around at night and stalking the citizens. You play as resident Ryan Baker on the night that these rumors rapidly escalate into undeniable facts. Following some strange goings-on at your house, your son is abducted by the grey men, and your mission is to get him back by any means necessary. This quest will cause you to cross paths with some wild and wacky characters, evoking an almost X-Files style vibe. Whilst this sounds like a sci-fi horror fan's ideal experience, the relatively new developer shows their inexperience in both narrative and gameplay, resulting in an uneven and oftentimes boring game. There are some great foundations here in the quiet town of Greyhill, but it seems Refugium Games aimed for the stars with this title, and the furthest their rocket could reach was the front garden. As I said before, out of the gate we go from a quiet night in the house to an alien invasion within minutes, with little hanging around. I think this was the right pace to start off with this game, as whilst it describes itself as survival horror, I definitely place it more on the Layers of Fear style walking simulator horror. Done right, these types of experiences can be truly horrifying, offering gripping narrative and effective scares. Greyhill, however, is hampered mainly by what I feel is a lack of identity and focus. It feels as though the game doesn't entirely know what it wants to be. With the initial trailer showing no combat, then later trailers including it, I do wonder if this was added in later on to appeal to a wider audience. Essentially, this game boils down to fetch quests, with the occasional cutscene or set piece to flesh out the overall playtime. You will oftentimes find your mission objective is collect X, then bring to Y, and in doing so the next objective is just go head over to Z. For someone who has lost his child, the protagonist seems far too preoccupied with helping literally anyone else than his own son, which is baffling. There is also a massive emphasis on long radio conversations, which act as exposition dumps with a little bit of character building. At the start we find a file confirming the government knew the alien invasion was going to take place, which I thought meant there'd be a supplementary storytelling alongside these radio calls, but honestly by the end they just felt like padding in an extremely short game. On release, the pathing in this game and actually knowing where to go was abysmal. It almost seems intentional to draw out the runtime. At first, you spend a large majority of your time in dark fields or foggy streets, figuring out just where to go next. Don't get me wrong, this town looks great and drips with atmosphere, but when you can't figure out at a glance where to go, you know something has gone wrong somewhere. Post-patch, Refugium added in flashing lanterns which show you where to go. They do help a lot, but they negatively impact the immersion in doing so. Given the alien tech glows with such a bright blue colour, there was an open goal right there on how to lead you through the game, but we ended up with flashing lanterns instead. I think to avoid the Greyhill Incident being a walking simulator, combat elements have been introduced late in development to somewhat mixed results. You only get two weapons, the baseball bat and the revolver. You get both extremely early on in the game, meaning you're ready to take on the aliens within the first 10 minutes or so. My issue with this being that you never expand on your capabilities, which I'll get to later. First is the baseball bat, which evokes what I believe the strongest influence for the game was, the swing away scene from the movie Signs.
Swing away, Mary.
The collision detection for the bat does seem a little off, has a fairly large cooldown, and takes 3 swings total to stun an alien. These things all add up to it being a very bad idea to take the aliens on with melee attacks, as they only remain stunned for about 5 seconds before getting right back up and making a beeline for you. Secondly is the revolver. Somehow the aliens were just really unequipped for their invasion of Earth, so 2 shots is all it takes to permanently kill them. For the most part, you can kill the majority of aliens you come across, as ammo is plentiful with it only taking 2 shots, and the way the aliens attack, it's hard to miss. So yes, the little grey men. This was the biggest wasted potential in the game by far. They can definitely catch you off guard at times, and do offer some organic scares, but come on. All these aliens are being coded to do is occasionally scan the environment, then when they see you, walk directly towards you. Whilst this walking towards you is menacing the first time, once you realise that's all they're capable of doing, walking backwards slowly and bonking them with the baseball bat just becomes comical. They could have done so much with these aliens. They are literally from another world. But instead, they just walk towards you, then grab you for a QTE escape, and if you don't press it fast enough, it's an instant game over. They also seem to have incredible peripheral vision and their own jump scare soundtrack, so you can be creeping near one in a bush, then just get the jump scare music and have to run. Luckily this doesn't impact too much, except when trying to trigger story progression, but like I said, in 90% of the cases, you have enough ammo to shoot the alien dead anyway. One thing I can say in Greyhill Incident that honestly was the main reason I even played this game is that the atmosphere and setting alongside the environment visuals are really immersive. If you ignore the character models, the rustling cornfields and deathly quiet streets remind you of the sleepy towns you'd expect to find a horror movie slasher villain lurking in. The foliage and sound design when walking amongst the corn genuinely do make you feel like you're there, on one of those cold nights when you're walking past quiet fields on the way home from a friend's house. You can really tell a lot of the development went into the outside areas, and the use of fog and darkness cleverly disguises your play space, giving the impression it's actually bigger than it is. The only issue with said play space is the believability of it. Now, some suspension of disbelief is always a bit expected in a game or a movie, but the fact the main character can't climb over knee-high fences and in one case step up a curb is insane to me. The way to go is often barred by some corrugated metal, which again is knee-high, but you need to satisfy the story criteria before you can hop it and get on with saving your son. In fact, at one point you see your son get abducted and you do nothing but watch due to there being a low fence in your way. Having the option to traverse these sections with higher barbed wire fences or something would have made this seem much less ridiculous and a bit more believable, especially during story sections. The character models in this game are rough, and the animations could definitely use a bit of work.
I never thought I'd die in a goddamn graveyard.
Capone! Don't die, goddammit!
The aliens themselves, whilst only wearing some little black jumpsuits, look pretty detailed. It's just a shame they never went a bit further and made them a bit taller, more menacing, or even had a few varieties of aliens to keep things fresh. So, let's get down to it. How long does this game take? Well, I finished the first playthrough on Twitch in 2.5 hours. That was with breaks and interacting with chat. Seriously. I don't expect every game to be significantly long, especially horror games, as longer horror games can rapidly overstay their welcome, but I felt a bit cheated buying this. A normal playthrough off stream and getting abducted a few times I think will take you about 1.5 hours. If you follow a guide, you can get all the achievements and finish the game in 1 hour. Yep, that's it. Usually when I'm talking about a game's length, I like to cover the sort of play sessions you typically have, and whether or not it suits somebody with brief periods of time to spend gaming. Now luckily this game definitely falls into the category of the type of game you can play through in one sitting, but my issue with this is the price. For £21, this is not the game I would expect. The likes of Amanda the Adventurer was a significantly better, more immersive, well-crafted, and more importantly longer game for only £7. I also find it kind of insulting they're charging an extra £3.39 for found footage mode, which is basically a camera filter. Are you serious? At a lower price point, I think horror fans with limited time can have an alright time with this, but its many shortcomings do not justify the cost here, not even close. Ultimately, I'm not recommending Greyhill Incident to anyone as it currently stands. Whilst the atmosphere, setup and world building really are a solid foundation on which you can build a horror game, the combat feeling almost bolted on and terrible story ruin the good work of the environment designers. Essentially, you reach a point 10 minutes in where you will have everything you will have until the end of the game. As you can likely tell by how short this video is, there just isn't enough here to warrant the price tag, and with the environmental clipping, the empty houses you can see through the window of, the fact that aliens can walk through doors and the doors open only one way, you can tell this needed way more development time before it released. And I don't just mean polishing. There is no progression, no additional abilities, weapons, mechanics, or areas you will come across, and just as it looks like it might be the case that you'll get something new, the game ends. And I don't mean that it's a natural endpoint, I mean you walk outside a barn, see a set piece kick into life for what I thought was the final act of the game, you rescuing your son that you were apparently trying to do all game, then cut to black and you're in a cutscene with two completely different characters, Then the credits roll. There are no payoffs for any story beats. You spend 99% of this game looking after other people instead of chasing your son. You even get told how to save your son about 15 minutes from the end, and you elect to go chase after someone else's daughter instead of going to save your own son. Why? I truly wanted to like this game. As an avid horror enthusiast and streamer, I expected less the more trailers I saw, but I still had high hopes. The gorgeous set dressing sadly doesn't make up for the poorly implemented mechanics that are ankle deep, something the protagonist probably couldn't even step over now I think about it. So, do you have time for the Greyhill Incident? On this channel I like to give my thoughts on the game, alongside a bit more of a deep dive on the time you have to invest, so you know what you're getting into before you load it up, because time is precious, right? If you enjoyed the video or found it useful, feel free to like and share. If you subscribe, I'm looking to put out regular content like this alongside some more in-depth video essays, so stick around, and if you have any requests on future videos, just drop them in the comments. And finally, if you want to come hang out and chat with me, you can find me over on twitch.tv/GraciousRhino every Sunday. I'm Gracious Rhino, look after each other, and I'll catch you soon.